Story is the most powerful way to put idea into the world. So, for starting a new chapter of learning, I, Triki Dirki, being your host for today's event, wants to extend a warm greeting and good evenings to all of you present here. I hope you all are doing amazing. On behalf of whole SEMS family, I welcome you all for today's international webinar on topic Basics of Storytelling. And to edit our guest of honor and today's speaker, Mr. Sumit Agrawal. It is a great honor to have with us. We are grateful for your presence, sir.
My pleasure.
Before I, proce- Before I proceed, let me take a brief introduction about the organization. SEMS Welfare Foundation is not for profit entity, but established to work in the area of education, social welfare, women empowerment, skill development, entrepreneurship, livelihood generation, etc. SEMS Group has conducted various international conferences, seminar, workshop, and webinar in emerging technology in various parts of India and has an active network of 33,000 plus engineer, manager, and researcher, etc. Storytelling is the social and cultural activity of sharing story, sometimes with improvisations, theatrics, or embellishment. Every culture has its own story or narrative, which are shared as a means of entertainment, education, culture, prevention, or instilling moral value. Now, let me introduce today's speakers to you all. Mr. Sumit Agrawal, a warrior who fought his own disease and cheers his new life. He was born with cerebral palsy with 70% body restriction. He had to go through four surgeries, each one more difficult than the last. But he come out with new sunshine. A remarkable person whose story has been spoke by relevant magazines all over the world like Yahoo News, Forbes, News 18, Fortune India, Telegraph, Business Standard, and many more, with the hope of creating a world where diversity become a norm. I would like to give my heartiest welcome to our guest speaker, Mr. Sumit Agrawal. Over to you, sir.
My dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here today among all of you. I am not supposed to be alive today, and I have 70% disability, and I was able to overcome cerebral palsy after four major surgeries. I was rejected from 30 schools, and the 31st school was kind enough to accept me. And after that, I was rejected from multiple colleges. After that, I was rejected from multiple job interviews. After that, I got into PR. And was able to realize that everybody is looking to create some impact. That is how I opened my own PR agency. And I fell in love with storytelling because I realized everybody has a story to sell, story to tell, waiting to be found out. All of our lives are driven by stories. Our entire lives are stories. We move from one incident to the other incident. Storytelling in India, when it comes to storytelling in India, it's an ancient art, it's an ancient technique which has existed from immemorable times. If we look at Mahabharata, if we look at Ramayana, if we look at our Vedas, they are brilliant examples of stories which are memorable, which are shareable throughout generation. If I look at the basic aspects of storytelling. In India, we have different forms of storytelling. Kathas throughout India can be a form of storytelling. If we look at puppeteers, they have a form of storytelling through the art of puppet. If we look at the form of writing letters, writing kavitas in India, they have their own form of telling stories. Now, why is storytelling so important and why everybody should learn the art of telling stories? There are two aspects to it. One is a story creates a memorability. Stories are memorable. We hear stories from our grandmothers, grandfathers while growing up, and we tend to remember those stories as we grow up. Stories have memorability and stories have shareability. If it's a good story, you share it with others. And that is what is the basic art of storytelling. A good story must contain design. A good story must have shareability. A good story must have memorability. And with the advent of social media like Facebook, social media like Pinterest, social media like LinkedIn, stories have become much more visual in nature. We have shifted from text-based stories to a much more visual form of storytelling which we can see. and interact with. For example, brands like Coca-Cola, brands like Pepsi, brands like Nike have much more immersive stories which they use to create a cult of following for their audience and for their community so that they can engage with the audience and get much more deeper form of engagement. Stories also allow you to create and garner more fans for your brand. You can also use stories for your personal branding. For example, people know me as somebody who is into diversity and inclusion, right? I share stories of my struggle, I share stories of my triumph during my childhood, right? The problems which I faced, the problems which I overcame, all of that I share through storytelling, and people are able to relate to it. Another form of storytelling is relatability. In the recent days, Bollywood isn't doing so well. Why? Because people are not able to relate to the modern stories of Bollywood. Whereas if you look at a lot of Instagram influencers, a lot of LinkedIn influencers, they are getting a lot of engagement because people are now used to short form of content, number one. Number two, people are looking at stories which they can relate to. Right. People are looking at influencers who have some form of relatability to them, and that is what drives form. Even if you look at memes today, right? Memes is also a form of storytelling, right? If you like a meme and if you like a storytelling, memes can be a storytelling. Graphics can be a form of storytelling. Everything around you tells a story. You just have to visualize it. Stories have become much more visual. Right? If I ask anybody that what do you imagine when you see a deity, a god, right? Then you will have a certain image which would come up to your brain, right? Because we have heard stories and kathas and epics of gods and deities and various other forms of deities which we worship, right? So we have an image that conjures up. If I talk about myself, if you have seen me somewhere in at an event, you would be able to visualize my face when somebody talks about me. Right. So all of this forms the basics of storytelling. Visualizing, the power of visualization, the power to remember, the power to share, the power to enhance. All of that forms the basics of storytelling. Now, why do I talk about storytelling so much? Because storytelling has the power to impact brand. I don't know if you guys remember or not, but few years back, JCBs suddenly went viral. JCBs, for those of you who do not know, are equipment for digging of the earth. And people used to make memes of JCBs, and that made the company viral. And that's sort of the stock price of JCBs. Few days back, a company which manufactures insulin was on Twitter, and a parody account of that company said that insulin is now free and made a post with it. The entire stock market of that brand crashed, and the brand lost millions and millions in revenue. So, what I'm trying to say is stories have the power to make or break brand. Whatever is going on with Twitter right now, right? Elon Musk firing dozens of employees all across the globe is putting up a certain image in your brain that the company is downsizing and it is having a negative impact on the economy. So, whatever comes to your mind when you visualize something is the power of storytelling. Now, what forms a good story? A good story is a story which you can remember for a very long time. A good story is a story which interacts with multiple touch points with a consumer's brand. A good story is a story which leaves you with certain life lessons. For example, if I talk about Mahabharata, the first thing that comes to your mind is Pandava and Kaurava. So all of this, the characters in a story, the basis of the story, the core of the story, form in essence what you are trying to convey through storytelling. And nowadays, storytelling is not just limited to books or epics. Storytelling has also transitioned to social media. Anytime you are trying to write a social media post, right, that forms a story, that forms a relevant story, that shows me your interests, your hobbies, the places you hang out with. All of that is a form of storytelling. So, what I'm trying to get at is storytelling is a very powerful medium which you can use to impact a lot of people. For example, when for me, Vivekanand started his speech at America, he started with my dear brothers and sisters of America. Now, when you open with such a powerful statement by calling foreigners brothers and sisters, this shows the hospitality that India has towards foreign nationals, that we accept foreigners as brothers and sisters as well. So storytelling can be done through words, through images, and through text. Now, one of the major aspects of storytelling is any story should have consistency. If you do not have consistency, right, people will not listen to you. You should have a particular format, a particular brand color, a particular type font which should be consistent in all across your communication. Because if you do not have consistency, people will not be able to relate to you. And relatability comes through memorability. If people remember you, then only they are able to relate to you. And that comes through branding strategy and relatability. So just to start off, when you are looking at storytelling, just look at your comic, just look at your things that you like to read on the internet, all of your blogs that you like to read. The blogs have a particular format, the comics that you read, they have a particular color, a particular tone, and whatever you read in a particular essence. All of that, how you interact with your consumers, how you interact with people around you, how you interact, and what's your tone of interaction. For example, Starbucks has a very vibrant social media page, right? If you look at Starbucks, they have a very vibrant page and they share the stories of their customers, all of that. Same with McDonald's, right? So brands can become human through storytelling. They have an emotional aspect. Storytelling adds an emotional aspect to whatever you are trying to convey. Right? So I believe that all of us are storytellers, right? Because we all have some stories to share and tell. So whenever you are looking to start storytelling, or you are trying to share something in the form of storytelling, I believe you should just start and then be yourself, authentic self. That's what helps most with storytelling. I have given over 100 plus speeches in various events and various forums, and I've received the most questions in various colleges. Now, what helps me be interactive with the audience? What helps me is I am very authentic, right? Whatever I say comes from within. So even if you share a story, the story should be originating from authenticity. And that is what drives people to associate with you. And that is what drives stories to have a impact that you are seeing. So this is all about the basics of storytelling. Now I would like to take any questions if you have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful webinar. The session was very informative. We are grateful for the time and effort you to share your thoughts.
So, the first question we want to ask from you is how to express our story better. In short, how to be a better storyteller.
See, when I start my story on LinkedIn, right, over a period of 3 years, I've got over 100 million views on LinkedIn, and I'm the top voice of LinkedIn in India, right? So when I started my story, I started sharing my story. I started with a very powerful line that I'm not supposed to be alive today. And I survived by a miracle, right? That is what drew people in, right? And in short, when you are telling stories, start with a very powerful opening line, which will hook. And that is how you draw people into your story.
Thank you, sir, for answering this question. The another question we have is, how can we make storytelling as our career?
If you look at all of these influencers on Instagram, right? If you look at all of these influencers on Instagram, on YouTube Shorts, all of them have a story to tell. Within the 30 seconds that they get in the short, they are telling a lot of stories, right? And within the 30 seconds, they are giving you a takeaway. Right? Whether it's a travel blogger, whether it's somebody like Ranveer Alavadia, who's a motivational speaker, whether it's somebody who's into spirituality, everybody has a story to tell, right? And they're leaving you with a lesson in 30 seconds. Right, when you are looking at their short form videos. So all of these people are giving you a story in 30 seconds. So whenever you are telling a story, you can try to be short and leave with an impactful lesson at the end. And if you make storytelling your career by trying to tell short but impactful stories, you will be able to become an influencer in social media space. That opens up lots of doors for you. If you are able to become an influencer, that opens up a lot of doors for you. And all of the brands today are looking for storytellers, somebody who can tell their story online, somebody who can share their story, somebody who can interact with their customers. All of that, because that drives the revenue for any brand, right? If a customer today tags, say Pepsi or somebody, and says that I have had a very good experience with Pepsi, that helps the brand gain a lot of recognition through authenticity. People are not looking at celebrities now. People are now looking at influencers, because we call it the creator economy market. Now it is being called the creator economy market. Anybody who's a creator online wields a lot of clout to make brands sustainable for the long run. I
Thank
hope
you,
I
sir.
answered
It
you.
was an effective piece of advice. So the another question which our participants want to ask from you is, why we should be skillful at storytelling?
See, two things, right? If you are very skillful at storytelling, right, you get a lot of promotions. If you are at a job and if you are very good at storytelling, that means you are also good at convincing people. If you are good at convincing people, you are good at convincing your team members, right? If you are good at convincing your team members, you get a lot of promotion, because only team players today are rewarded to grow through promotion, right? Nobody can grow solo. Today is not the era of competition. Today is the era of collaboration. And you can collaborate only when you can convince people, and you convince people through stories. So storytelling is the most essential skill for having people skills. That is why you should be skillful at storytelling.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, the another question which we want to ask is, how to avoid anything negative about a story?
See, again, if a negative story is imparting some lessons to you, right? If a negative story is imparting some lessons, for example, cigarette packet, right? Cigarette packet has a picture of a lung that is disease. That picture tells a negative story that if you smoke, you will have diseases. If a negative story is having some positive impact, then why to avoid negative story? I don't think any story is negative or positive. I think it is the intention of the story which makes the judgment, right? So I don't think you should avoid negative words. If the story has a positive impact through negative words, feel free to use them.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, the another question we have is, what's the great general acceptable format of storytelling for masses?
See, as of now, the most acceptable format for masses of storytelling is video, because YouTube is video, Instagram is video, TikTok before it got banned is video, LinkedIn is promoting video, right? Pinterest is also coming out with video. So all of that is placing video content at the top. So I think you should have short videos, short 30-second videos. I think that is what the attention span of the general population is today. Nobody watches long content unless you are really looking for it. So, for example, if you're looking for a cooking video for a very particular dish, right, 30 minutes, then only you will watch that particular video. If you are searching for it, then only you will watch that particular video. If you just hear somebody speaking for 30 minutes, I don't think anybody is going to watch the video unless you are a fan of that person. So, short formats, video content is the best form of storytelling these days. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, there is another question. Is there an opportunity to improve memory using virtual reading storytelling?
Yes. Yes, if you want to improve memory, I would again tell you not to watch short content and scroll through short content and scroll through Insta and Facebook, because again, if you have too much of information overload, don't scroll through social media and watch too much of short videos. That will hamper your memory, because again, you won't be able to retain long forms of content after a long time, right? So watch longer videos, watch movies, watch long form of content, so that you can train your memory to retain long form content, and that helps you gain memorability.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering all the questions. It looked like we have covered all our questions.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. We are all storytellers. We all live in the network of stories. There isn't strong connection between people than storytelling. I, Riti Tirki, your host of the day, signing off on a cheerful note. Have a wonderful day.